It's the Growing for Market podcast.
We pretty much have no SAPs in my farm. What we have are a ton of mini little systems that exist where the thing is being addressed. I think a testament to this type of thinking is the fact that we've gone from 100 to 200 to 300 to 400 trays per week in production or harvested, but we've never gone past 2 full-time equivalent employees, like maybe a full-time and 2 part-times or 2 full-times. But we've gotten better, and we've bought potting machines and other equipment, but our systems are so much better now that our labor, our payroll has not ballooned with our production. It's kind of remained stagnant as our production has gotten better or bigger because our systems have gotten better. And I just lean, and Ben Hartman's book is just great. So.
Hello and welcome to the Growing for Market podcast, where we talk about growing, marketing, and the business of growing flowers and vegetables for local markets. I'm Andrew Mefford, your host and the editor of Growing for Market magazine, proudly celebrating 35 years in 2026 as the magazine by and for vegetable and flower market farmers. If you're enjoying the podcast, just wait till you see the magazine. Go to growingformarket.com for more. Also, if you could give us a follow and a rating, it really helps other like-minded people find the podcast. And now, let's take a minute to hear from our sponsors. It's with their generous support that we can bring you the podcast for free. This episode is sponsored by Nifty Hoops. Nifty Hoops designs and builds high tunnel systems for growers who want dependable results. What stands out is that Nifty Hoops tunnels are complete systems designed by experienced builders with the details worked out ahead of time. That means the core components are included from the start, like end walls, ventilation, doors, baseboards, and double-layer poly, rather than being added later. The tunnels are designed for real wind and snow loads, efficient assembly, and long service life. You can choose a self-build kit with guidance from written manuals and videos, or a community build where Nifty Hoops works alongside you and the project gets completed in one day. Nifty Hoops has built more than 1,500 hoop houses across the country, including many funded through the NRCS High Tunnel Initiative. They're known nationwide for predictable outcomes and ongoing support. If you're planning a high tunnel project and want it done right, you can learn more at niftyhoops.com. The busiest season starts now. Once the first boxes ship, you won't have time to fix what's broken, you'll just survive it again. Farmhand built a free 30-second quiz that shows you exactly how many hours you'd get back this season by ditching manual workflows and spreadsheets, and what those hours are worth in dollars. Results use real data from hundreds of other farmers. This is your last window before the season takes over. See where you stand. Take the quiz at farmhand.partners/GFM. That's farmhand.partners/GFM. Today, we have the pleasure of welcoming Garrett Corwin to the Growing for Market podcast. Garrett is the owner of Piedmont Microgreens, a microgreen farm in Durham, North Carolina, and he is the co-founder, along with his brother, of Microgreen Manager. He has been growing microgreens for nearly 6 years, scaling Piedmont to 350 to 400 trays a week, with more than 50 wholesale accounts, including FreshPoint and Sysco. The farm generated $330,000 in revenue in 2025 with a 2-person team. When the operation grew too complex to manage with spreadsheets, Garrett and his brother Spencer built Microgreen Manager, crop planning and order management software purpose-built for commercial microgreen growers. And Spencer left a software engineering role at Meta to build it. Garrett runs the farm and drives the content and customer side of the business. Microgreen Manager is bootstrapped, independent, and used by growers internationally. So without further ado, welcome to the Growing for Market podcast, Garrett.
Hey, Andrew, thanks for having me. Thanks for the introduction.
Yeah, well, thanks so much for getting in touch. It really sounds like you have an interesting business, and I'm curious to hear more about it. But one of the first questions that I wanted to ask you is, how did you get interested in growing microgreens in the first place?
Sure. I think there's a lot of people that are really passionate about microgreens, and I am now. But when I got started, I didn't get into microgreens because I was particularly passionate about the product niche. I really wanted to start an urban market garden. I worked on the Duke campus farm when I was a graduate student at Duke, and that was a very classic 1-acre market garden with a small CSA. I learned a ton about IPM and soil health and all those normal things, and I thought that it would be really fun to just take it a little bit more urban. I think I was just contrarian, or I am a little contrarian. I really wanted to be on that side of things, of bringing food to be right in front of people, so they couldn't ignore it. They couldn't not know where their food comes from or how it's grown. As you can imagine, though, in most major cities, and Durham's not that major, but it's developed enough, urban land is rarely undeveloped or available or not paved over in concrete. And I had to quickly abandon that idea. Thankfully, by that time, I had experienced a lot of different types of farming. I had the market garden experience with the Duke farm. I originally got the bug to become a farmer by working at USC in California, where I'm from. They had introduced me to like a little hydroponic system and a little aquaponic system and a little in-ground garden. And that's where I started my first garden. So I like kind of knew a little bit about the hydroponic side as well, the market garden side. And then I went to work for Freight Farms, which went bankrupt, unfortunately, a couple months ago, like a lot of these big indoor ag companies. But when I was interning there, I got to also see like the really sexy indoor ag, high tech, hydroponic, So I got all these different lenses of things you could grow, ways you could grow them. And I just kind of had to take stock when I had to accept that an urban market garden in Durham wasn't going to be a thing, and think what thing and what format would let me get into farming right now, rather than waiting until I was 10 years older and had another career and had some money to buy land. And I'm like, well, microgreens, I don't need a lot of money. I don't need a lot of space, a lot of equipment. I kind of just get started where I am. And so that's how I got into microgreen specifically. It was what was accessible.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I don't know. Ironically, maybe microgreens are going to be what bootstraps you into, of being able to afford actual land there in Durham. Because, yeah, I mean, I know that's always a consideration, is that, land in urban areas tends to be more expensive. It's also, I think there's a fair amount of growth in urban growing just because there's so many customers close by.
Yeah.
Okay, and so that's interesting that you interned at Freight Farms, because am I mistaken, or is Freight Farms the one that was kind of like modularizing? Like, was their model to have a shipping container almost that was like outfitted with hydroponic or growing, so you could like put it anywhere, really?
Yeah, and that was one of the reasons I was attracted to working for them, as opposed to the more standard model of something like Aero Farms, where Aero Farms was building these giant warehouses and growing the food and selling the food. That I liked Freight Farms' model because they were building the infrastructure for people to become farmers. It was farm in a box type model. So I like that sort of enablement of people to expand their farms in other ways or become farmers by buying a relatively complete system. But yeah, it was a hydroponic system inside of a shipping container. And so their like HQ model was under the freeway, like the freeway overpass down in downtown Boston, sort of proving that you can put it anywhere.
Yeah. Okay, cool. All right, well, tell us about what your farm looks like today. Like, is all your production indoors or some in greenhouses, and how big is the farm or facility?
Sure. So we're all indoors in a warehouse in Durham City, rather than out in the county or somewhere urban. We've always been totally indoors. So I started in a living room in the apartment that I was renting. And then I bought a house, moved it into the garage. And then eventually we bought this commercial unit. So it's always been like fully indoors, fully climate controlled. The space we're in now is 1,875 square feet inside. I usually round that up to about 2,200 because we do have space. It's a multi-tenant, light industrial kind of flex space with a bunch of other units. We have a bunch of shared walls with other small businesses. And there's a concrete area out back. So back there, we have like our soil storage. We have a compost trailer where we dump the soil at the end of the cycle. And we have a little like Home Depot shed where we store some folding tables and some equipment. And then our van is parked back there. So to be fair, I usually round it up to like 2,200, 2,500 square feet.
So you're renting like a bay in almost like in a business park, or like I've seen those places, where like businesses can come in and basically rent business space. It sounds like that's what you're in.
Yeah, there are multiple carbon copies of this building in this business park. This building itself has 10 units. They're all pretty much the same 25 by 75 feet. And then they're just, share a common wall and they spread out laterally.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, how long ago did you start and what did that look like?
It's now 2026. So mid-November would be 6 years from our first sale is sort of how I mark it. So yeah, about 6 years in business. Started while I was still a Duke graduate student, while I was still working on the Duke farm. So back to kind of the point of you could start really small with just one rack. You didn't have to quit your job or really give it this whole commitment. You could kind of just start with, I remember when I started, I told myself just do one thing a day, whether that's like picking a payment provider or picking a website hosting service, or back then it could be very, very small and incremental. And started in this duplex that I was renting, started in the living room and started mid-COVID. So it would have been late 2020. I think we were kind of out of the worst of it, but everything was still very much on lockdown. And like a lot of microgreen growers, maybe not all farmers, but a lot of microgreen growers, myself included, thought, well, I'll start with restaurants. I figured retailers, wholesalers were going to probably want to come inspect the farm or see some sort of food safety or certification, which, in retrospect, I'm correct that a lot of wholesalers require GAP. And farmers markets are another natural place to start, but most farmers markets open applications in December, or at least around here they do. So I would have only been like a month old. And the one I wanted to join, the one we've been with, the Durham Farmers Market, is just such an exceptional market that you really have to be good. You have to obviously provide a product that they don't have, and you have to be established. And I was a month old, so it was really restaurants. And I remember thinking to myself, well, it's COVID. Restaurants are particularly hard hit. If I can make this business work now with restaurants amid a global pandemic, then it should only get easier as we come out of the pandemic and restaurants open up. And I don't know if it ever got easier, but the logic sort of held. So,
well, that's kind of what I was thinking, is like, that seems like a rough time to start trying to sell microgreens to restaurants, but like, you're here.
Yeah, I think it's just because the Triangle, North Carolina in general, the Piedmont, the Triangle, even places like Charleston and Charlotte, I think there's just such a strong agricultural commitment and a strong food scene, lots of independent restaurants, lots of family owned, lots of small restaurant groups. I think that has always been very advantageous because we don't have the biggest population, right? It helps compensate for being in a mid-sized or smaller metropolitan area. We were in my living room for like 9 months, and then I graduated from Duke, bought myself a home, which doubled as a rental property. So I really finagled this thing to make it work, because I was only doing about $800 a week gross at the time that I graduated, and I had to sort of commit to this versus getting a job, and bought my first home with the help of my parents. And I made sure, I said, this home has to work in so many ways. It was a unicorn, because I told my broker, I said, it needs to have a third space. It needs to either have a garage or a basement, somewhere I could put the business and it not interfere with or detract from the experience of having renters. And so there's a term called house hacking, where you either buy a multifamily like a duplex or a triplex, and you live in one unit and you rent out the others. You hopefully cover the full mortgage, the whole overhead, with the rent from the other units. And then you get to live for free, or at least they help subsidize the mortgage. Well, you can do the same thing with a single family home by renting out the individual rooms. And we're so close to Duke, and I was still connected to a lot of Duke students and Duke groups, that I figured if I could find a home that has enough spare bedrooms, enough 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms, 4 bedrooms, and a third space to put the business, then I could live off next to nothing, because my overhead of living, I wouldn't be paying somebody else rent. If I could rent out these other rooms, they would cover my cost of living, and I'd have a third space to sort of an extra space to grow the business in independently that wouldn't be an issue for the renters. So I found a 4-bedroom home with a detached garage, bought it, moved the business into the garage, rented out the 3 extra bedrooms on individual leases to Duke graduate students, and basically lived for free, just had to afford food, and then grew the business in the garage for another 2.5 or 3 years. And then finally we were busting at the seams in the garage, and eventually it's really hard to find a commercial space for small business. just a very popular in demand thing. And so eventually this came on the market, and then we moved here.
Oh, yeah. Well, it sounds like you did a pretty good job of hacking that house. You hacked it, sounds like 2 different ways. So
Yeah.
you're joining the ranks of many fine businesses that started in a garage.
True.
And now let's take a minute to hear from our sponsors. It's with their generous support that we can bring you the podcast for free. Farming is hard. Running it shouldn't be. Tend helps you plan your season, map your farm, and track every task from seed to sale. No spreadsheets, no guesswork, just seamless workflows. Tend is the all-in-one farm management platform that brings together planning, field mapping, fulfillment, real-time inventory, sales, labor, traceability, and accounting in one easy platform. Built for small market gardens, CSAs, and large diversified farms. Get started with a free account at tend.com. That's TEND.com. No credit card required. If you grow for market, you know performance is everything. That's why so many farmers are turning to Burpee's Farmers Market. Dedicated to professional growers, Burpee is now offering non-GMO seeds in larger quantities, bred and selected for standout flavor, strong yields, and the kind of visual appeal your customers crave. All farmers market varieties are trialed at Burpee's Research Farm in Doylestown, Pennsylvania, where expert horticulturalists test for germination rate, vigor, disease resistance, high yield, and consistency, things that make a difference in the field and to your bottom line. The seed assortment includes USDA certified organic varieties, Burpee bred classics, heirlooms, and exciting new introductions. Burpee's been doing this for 150 years, and they're still creating new varieties with growers like you in mind. You can check out the full lineup at burpee.com/farmersmarket. That's burpee.com/farmersmarket. And now back to the show. All right, so are you still selling at the Durham Farmers Market? And tell us, sounds like you've gotten a lot of other customers. So who else are you selling to now?
Yeah, we're definitely we have a pretty diverse customer base. We sell at the Durham Farmers Market. It's the only market we're a part of. It's the only market we've ever been a part of. We've been asked to join a lot of markets. There's a lot of markets in the area, but the Durham market is just so strong. I think we get 3,000 to 5,000 visitors per weekend.
Wow, yeah.
And just talking to other market managers, other people that sell microgreens at other markets, those markets pale in comparison to the market we attend from a revenue and foot traffic perspective.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot of traffic. Sounds like a really good market.
Yeah. So I know that for farmers and for small businesses worldwide, that people start at farmers markets because they're accessible. You get a lot of customer feedback. You get to refine your product really fast. But then as they scale, they tend to drop their farmers markets because they're not as profitable, and they have a fixed commitment where you have to show up for 4, 5, 6 hours. And so I totally appreciate the natural evolution, but we just love the market so much. It is quite profitable for us. We love our customers. I can talk later about the sort of waterfall we have that allows us to always sell all of our products between the sort of sequencing between our customer segments, but it's just great for so many reasons. So we sell at the farmers market. That's probably 10 or 15% of our revenue. And then restaurants have always been our bread and butter, just direct to local restaurants. Depending on the season, we're probably between 40 and 60 restaurants every week. We have a couple, retail's been the hardest to get into. So we sell to a couple small one-off co-ops and small grocery stores, either direct or through a wholesaler. That's maybe a couple percent of our business. And then the restaurants are probably 50 or 60%. And then wholesalers are the difference, whatever that is, 25 to 35%. And those wholesalers range from one-off here and there, $50, $100 to FreshPoint, which is 20% of our revenue. Yeah, they're huge. So we definitely have a good mix between small and large wholesalers, a couple of retailers, a lot of restaurants, and then the farmers market. So it makes our life logistically harder than if we just had 5 big wholesalers, but it also makes us more resilient. So
yeah, I can see that. Yeah, it's good to have multiple revenue streams and multiple customers.
Yeah,
it's probably good. So I'm curious about the FreshPoint, the bigger wholesalers, I would think. Are those customers still like taking clamshells, or are they buying like bulk microgreens?
They're still getting clamshells. The standard for wholesale is 8 ounces of product, which would be really overwhelming for a lot of our restaurants, at least for the more expensive and more potent things like herbs, cilantro, dill, fennel. It'd be wild to force them to buy 8 ounces of product, but it doesn't matter if it's basil or cilantro or whatever. For wholesale, it's just the standard format is half a pound.
Okay. But you have other sizes too?
We do for restaurants. Yeah. So for restaurants, a lot of our more expensive stuff, our specialty stuff like herbs is 2 ounces of product. And then our cheaper and heftier things like pea shoots and sunflower shoots, our blends are usually 8 ounces of product. But the expectation or the assumption is that they're using those things more freely. They're more affordable, so they're going to use them faster, bigger, go through them more as opposed to cilantro. So I don't know why, because most of the wholesalers we sell to are food service suppliers. So the end customer is still the same, whether we sell direct or to a wholesaler. So I'm assuming that if a restaurant is buying from a food service supplier like FreshPoint, that's just, they know when they're opening a restaurant that they're going to buy from distributors and wholesalers. And when they do that, they just have to expect to get 8 ounce format clamshells. And maybe that's an advantage. Another advantage for us over wholesalers is we offer a more flexible, convenient clamshell size.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah, because I mean, obviously, like, I don't know, that's always a thing with small farms is like trying to get, whether it be restaurants or florists, to buy directly from them versus going through, like engaging with the wholesale, economy. So, okay. And you guys deliver, how does delivery work?
Delivery is kind of a pain. It's good and bad, right? It's a chance for us to meet all of our customers, see them weekly, get feedback, provide that sort of higher touch customer service. But deliveries, including the farmers market, is 15 hours, 20 hours a week. Like it's a good 15, 20, 25% of our total labor time is just driving around. Yeah. So we just have a Sprinter van, and we retrofitted it with some folding shelves, and we have 4 big Coleman coolers. And so we didn't insulate it and refrigerate it for the same reason. It was expensive. We couldn't buy the van and refrigerate it at the same time. But it goes back to sort of having multiple customer segments, is that, yeah, our logistics would be a whole lot easier if we just had 5 really big wholesale customers. But the van is nice because it's flexible, it's adaptable. If we refrigerated the whole thing, it'd be weird or awkward or inefficient to store our farmers market stuff in there. It'd be just less flexible. So it's just got shelves with Coleman coolers, and we throw ice packs in the bottom and throw it on a towel and then put the product in. And especially in the winter, it's not a problem. In the summer, you get a little anxious when you near the end of a long delivery route. But in 6 years, we've never gotten a complaint about our shelf life.
Yeah. All right. Well, it must be working then, because I know it gets hot in the summertime there in North Carolina.
Yeah.
So
yeah, but yeah, we just drive around. We have multiple routes. We do like Durham on one day, and then we do the rest of the triangle the rest of the days.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Okay, so for our listeners who aren't familiar with that area, the triangle is Durham,
Chapel Hill, and Raleigh. Raleigh being the capital, and then implied is sort of all the connecting cities: Apex, Morrisville, Wake Forest.
Yeah. Okay. And there's a lot of like research and, between Duke and there's like a lot of universities and research and kind of stuff. Don't they call it the research triangle or something like that? Or is there?
Yeah. So sort of in the middle of the 3, there's a couple square mile area called RTP, Research Triangle Park. Lots in the healthcare sector, and increasingly more in North Carolina, and in the Piedmont region is more and more like tech. I think there's like semiconductors and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Not entirely sure, but very much health and medical oriented.
Yeah. Okay. So just for people who aren't familiar with the area, there's a lot of like various tech and research and stuff going on. I forgot to mention my mom went to Wake Forest, so go right. Demon Deacons. So okay. So a lot going there in Raleigh and the triangle. But I imagine delivery probably opens a lot of customers up, right? Because looking on your website, I saw that people could come pick up from your facility there too. But I imagine a lot of people, probably there's more I mean, you tell me if I'm wrong, but I'm imagining there's people who might not buy from you if you didn't deliver.
Oh yeah.
I mean, is that why you do it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I in the past with wholesalers that haven't been with us long term or don't buy from us consistently, we'll sometimes swing by. Sometimes chefs will come by if they need product for like an event, like a special event. Unless it's a huge order, we're not going to deliver to them not on our normal scheduled cadence. That's it's part of what makes it doable. Is one, we charge people a $5 delivery fee, which is not always been the case, but we also make it possible, like because we try to hit up or try to land a lot of restaurants in the same zip code, so that we're not going 15 minutes one way and then 30 minutes another. That there's deliberate efficiency there.
Yeah. Well, when I saw that on your website, it said you delivered for $5, and I thought like that's actually very reasonable. And yes, I figured you must be. Well, I saw you had, like you said, I forget what you said, but like you do Durham one day and the other, another location one day. So I figured you must be like almost like accumulating. Yeah. So like you said, you're not like driving across town for a $5 delivery. So.
And people, like when we started, we don't get it too much anymore. But when we started, people would ask us like, "Oh, can you deliver twice a week? Can you deliver Tuesday and Friday?" And I understand that that's probably normal with wholesalers because they always have semis driving around, and that's just they're in the trucking bit. They're in the business of logistics. They're in the business of delivery. But also, I presume it's because our biggest competitor, from a macro perspective rather than a local perspective, is Fresh Origins, just one of these mega greenhouse producers out of my home state of California. Like most produce in the country comes out of California, which means when it gets anywhere, usually, but especially the East Coast, it's not great. It's old. It's not in good shape. And so I think they had been so accustomed to getting this really bad product upon arrival, and they needed product on Tuesday to last them Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then they needed another delivery to last them Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then close on Monday or what have you. But we just had to continue to train them to understand all of our product. Like basil is the maybe exception because basil is just a finicky crop, no matter what stage it's at. Is like you're getting 10 to 14 days, like 10 to 14 quality days, not on day 10 you're questioning whether you should plate your dish with it. It's like 10 to 14 quality days, maybe even 3 or 4 weeks if you care for it well and it's a hardier variety. And so then now nobody ever really insists on a 2 a week, and we wouldn't do it anyway.
Yeah. You proved it with your quality.
Yeah.
Okay, so that actually does bring me to another thing that I noticed on your website. It says everything is grown to order. So you really not grow anything on speculation? And how does that work with customers? Do you tell them that they have to have anything they want ordered by a month before they want it delivered? Or maybe it's less. Like I know there may be turnaround times that are less than a month on microgreens, but whatever, whatever the turnaround time is for a tray, like you tell me, tell me how that like grown to order thing works.
Sure. Some of the basics: grow times range from 7 days, 6 or 7 days at the shortest. Radish, very fast crop. A lot of mild brassicas are 10 days. Some vegetable crops like beet and chard are around the 17-day mark. And most herbs, like the whole umbel family, your basils, are around are anywhere from 17 to 23 days. And if you want to grow red vein sorrel or get really niche, your celery is pretty long. You're looking at like 3 to 4 weeks. So usually we tell people it's 1 to 4 week lead time. 80% of our volume probably is grown to order. The huge gap there, the 20%, is because market is speculatively grown, but it's still grown. We still put it in our software. We still run it based on historic sales data. So it's spec in that way.
Okay, so just your farmer's market is the only speculation part of your business.
Yeah, I'd say maybe of that 20% gap, 15% is the market. 5% are caterers. Caterers don't have a standing par because every week, every month, they have different events of different sizes and different menus for those events. So it's really hard for them to get committed to a standing order. Some of them are so consistent in their one-offs. Like we know certain caterers always want the same types of products and they order consistently enough that we do kind of at least program a committed recurring order for them. But kind of like the whole delivery frequency thing, but worse. We have had to train people. We've had to train our customers, our chefs, to understand that this is our business model. That if you want to guarantee we'll have your product and you like our quality product, our long-lasting local product, you have to conform to our way of doing things. So it is mostly spec grown, even for wholesalers like FreshPoint. FreshPoint, I know wholesalers tend to get a bad rap sometimes by farmers or by people, has been the best customer. They're our biggest customer. They've almost never missed a week. And so almost everything is spec grown for our B2B customer, is grown to order for our B2B customers. But we also naturally account for a buffer. More buffer on more popular crops and more buffer on crops that are more finicky. And so this, like cilantro, super popular crop, we're not going to grow exactly the exact quantity that we think our customers want or that our customers have told us they want. We will grow like 10% more because we might lose trays to disease, or a new hire might drop a tray or whatever. And because we know people will naturally fluctuate. Hey, it's spring. We got this, this special item on our menu. We'd love to double our cilantro purchase this week. Is that fine? And so we've learned over the years to build in a natural buffer to account for both losses and mistakes on our end, as well as landing new customers and not having to say, yeah, sorry, cilantro takes 17 days. You got to wait 17 days before we can get you that. So we've fine-tuned that aspect of it.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense to build in a buffer, obviously, for unforeseens. I mean, so does that mean that FreshPoint, or any of your customers for that matter, are ordering? Do they know of the slower crops? They just have to have an order in, like, I don't know, what is a slower crop? What is the example of a slower crop? And are they trained that they have to order that give you more lead time than, say, like radish microgreens?
More or less at this point. Yeah. So like a radish is 7 days, celery is like 23 or something. We try not to have to delay their first order, whether it's a new customer, a first-time customer getting their first order, or a veteran getting a change in their order. But we just tell people once they understand the model, which even after we explain it and they place their first order, we try to, when we're getting that first order, really be clear and say, do you want this as a one-off or a standing order? And we always emphasize, like, a standing order ideally is every week, but some people have a standing order for every other week or every third week.
Okay.
And still frequently people go, yeah, I know, a standing order would be great. And then, and then we show up the next week without announcing ourselves, because that's sort of how it works. Is we're not going to check in with you every week. We might check in with you because we want to, because we're there. We want to say hi. We want to see how the product's going with you, but we got 50 customers. We're not checking in with them every week to say, hey, is this still good? It's like, no, you're happy with your order. This is your par. We're going to keep bringing it to you every week on the quantity and pack list and cadence we agreed on until you tell us otherwise. That way, neither of us has to manage this relationship. And you can bet your business on the fact that we will show up there with that product, because we're an indoor farm. We can pretty much guarantee it. So it saves a lot of people a lot of angst, but also until people are trained, until people understand, sometimes we will show up on that second week, that third week, whatever, and they're like, oh, I didn't want this again, or like, we're still using the product from last week or whatever. And I'm like, oh, okay, let me re-explain this. And it's usually no harm, no foul, because we can just take that extra product to the farmer's market. But yeah, it just takes training.
Requires a little training. Okay, fair enough. That's cool. I mean, I obviously I can see how that's probably really good for wastage and overage and all that kind of stuff, to be growing pretty much everything to order.
Yeah.
I would think that would be you wouldn't waste a whole lot of product that way.
Yeah. And that gets to something I get a lot of joy from and am passionate about. And I mentioned earlier, which is that we almost never have product waste. I mean, good crop planning and this grown to order model, we can be fairly confident that we're going to sell at least everything from the B2B end that we intended on selling. We have a relatively generous cancellation policy that, as long as we haven't started harvesting your product and committing that labor and that packaging cost to your order, then you can cancel. We tend to bar that above about $200, just because then we've already committed the seed and soil to it. So like wholesalers have always been relatively respectful of that. They'll usually give us 4 weeks notice. hey, we need to change this, stop this, skip this. Like, cool, thanks for the heads up. But we have this waterfall of sales where Thursday and Friday are our restaurants. We grow what we need to grow for them with a little bit of buffer. There's that buffer plus any canceled orders that come in. Great. We will take that stuff. We will also program in about 80% of what we think we will sell at the farmers market based on historic sales trends. And so we will take basically a floor, like a minimum that we think we'll sell at the farmers market, plus all that buffer and all those canceled orders together. That's all of our volume going to the farmers market. So in essence, we have no waste from our B2B customers because it's all going to the farmers market. Farmers market, hopefully we sell out because then we have no waste at all. If we don't sell out at the farmers market, we bring that product back. Then we need to find a tertiary buyer that is okay with product that's a couple days old now. They don't have much choice in what that leftover product is. And originally we tried to think about like churches or food banks at a minimum to just give it away so it doesn't go to compost. And people didn't want it because it'd be inconsistent or whatever reason. Thankfully, there's a platform called Too Good To Go where anybody from a gas station to the Whole Foods buffet to a farm can make a profile and say, hey, we have this extra food. I'm going to put up a surprise bag. And so they try to make it as easy as possible by saying, you as the consumer have no say in what you're getting. You just get a surprise bag of product or food or what have you that is valued at on a retail basis. Like if you were to buy this in the store, this is either $7 or $14 or $21 worth of retail value, but you're getting it for a third of the price because it's a little old. It's the leftovers. You have to pick it up. You don't know what it is. And so we can come back from the farmer's market and we can say, great, we got like $80 worth of stuff. Let's put up, 5 surprise bags, set the window for pickup when we're already going to be here working anyway. And then people come to the farm, which is normally not a retail, like people can't normally buy from the farm. And it's great. They get cheap product. We at least cover the cost that we sunk into that product. And we get a ton of exposure, new customers that might buy from us elsewhere rather than just through the platform. I think to date, we've gotten like 250,000 impressions on the platform. So it means that unless we really do a bad job or a lot of B2B customers cancel or the farmer's market is just terrible, like there's a huge storm, it means we almost never, ever have product waste, which is nice.
Well, that's great because I can't remember if it was on your website or social media feed. I did see about the app. What is it called? Too Good To Go.
Yeah.
And I was wondering, like, I had never heard of that before. And I was wondering how, like, how much people use that. So I'm glad you brought that up. So if, it might be useful for other people in our audience. And I was kind of curious how, like, if that actually had any traction. So it sounds like it does. That's a cool way. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure every farmer hates food waste. So.
Yeah. And I think I've only occasionally looked at the consumer side version of the app. But if people want healthy, affordable food, it's easy pickings because your competition is like gas station hot dogs that are showing up on that plot. Like there's not a whole lot of other options. It's like 9 different Subways and like 12 different gas station leftovers. And
then microgreens.
Right. And so people love it. We get the same repeat customers. They rave about it. It's great. So it's probably a great way to drive reviews as well. Like you can get reviews for Yelp and Google and such from your farmers market patrons, but these people are also a great source. So
yeah. Okay. That's okay. Glad you brought that up then. Do you grow single varieties in the trays or mixes or some of both? And the reason I asked this question is because we already talked about how I know there's some microgreens that are really quick, like 1 or 2 weeks. And then there's some others that are a lot slower. And that, of course, the difficulty is if you want to make a mix, obviously it's not going to be a very good mix to grow if you got some crops that are done at 1 week and some crops that are done at 3 or 4 weeks. And so I'm just wondering how you'd handle that.
Yeah, and you would think it would be popular to plant them together because even seed suppliers like Trulieve will sell mixed seed bags. They'll sell like a basic salad mix seed bag and it has multiple varieties in it. I know some people do. We don't. We would call it co-planting, where you're planting multiple varieties together. The only one we do it with are radish. So we used to offer like Rambo, Triton, and daikon radish as separate varieties, and we would grow them separate. That's the only combination where you have the same grow time and same grow parameters or height. Because like we could grow, and we tested growing our nutrition mix, which is broccoli, cabbage, and kohlrabi. All have the same germ time, all have the same grow time, but broccoli grows a whole lot taller than kohlrabi. So it's possible, but to get the best product possible for our customers and to kind of going back to being flexible with our van and with our customer base and all these things, we have a lot of people that want just broccoli, and we have other blends that also you can use cabbage, and I don't think we have a blend that has kohlrabi in it, but it's a little bit more work, but it gives us a little bit more flexibility to say like, great, we're going to harvest all of our broccoli first and all of our cabbage first, and then we can make the blends that require those components. And it gives us more flexibility because like ideally our nutrition mix would be equal parts of all three. But if it's 40% broccoli and then 30 and 30, no one's going to know the difference. It's not going to change anything about the blend. Whereas if we co-planted all of them, we would be committing to that number of trays as blends rather than the other way around. So it's kind of like flexibility, but then also the crops have to have the same germ time so that they come out of germination at the same time, and the same, more or less the same grow time, and roughly similar like ways in which they grow so that they're not out competing each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that's kind of what I was thinking, because is that you would probably, I was guessing that you were going to focus on trays of a single variety, because I know there's, like things can happen when you grow multiple varieties, but I just wanted to ask and make sure. So how are you framing your microgreens at the farmer's market? Because I got to say, like, I may be dating myself here, but when I first became aware of microgreens, as a product, I thought of it as a restaurant thing. Like, like something you would see in a fancy restaurant, the plate garnished and that kind of thing. And I really didn't think of it as a farmer's market product, but that may have been a lack of creativity on my part, because, you're definitely not the only one. I know a lot of people now, I think, sell them at the farmer's market. But what I'm getting at is that I don't know, maybe more home cooks are garnishing than I thought, but like, do you make a pitch, as far as like, I don't know what the sizes are that you're selling at the farmer's market, but I've also heard people pitch like what I think is probably a more effective retail pitch of saying like, it's almost like a mini salad or something like that. Like, how do you frame your product at the farmer's market? I'm assuming that it might be different than what you're framing to. I'm assuming the wholesalers are selling it onto a restaurant where they are garnishing. Do you make a different pitch for? Because it sounds like it's going well. If it's 20% of your business, it sounds like you're moving some microgreens through the farmer's market. So I'm just curious how you're framing that for the farmer's market.
I'll start by saying that probably because of the nature of agriculture in our state, the nature of food and restaurants and all those things being so well developed in our area, we've been lucky in that we haven't had to do a lot of educating, maybe retraining of behavior, like I mentioned with our chefs, but not a whole lot of educating. Yes, at the farmer's market, like I've never had to explain to a chef what a microgreen is. And I don't think I've had to explain the value. Obviously, some people don't see the value and don't want to buy from us. But with the farmer's market, there's still people that are conflating sprouts and microgreens. And if I think that they seem interested in learning the difference, I will explain it. And we still, to this day, we've been at the market 4 or 5 years. Thankfully, that means there's hopefully new first-time visitors to the market, but we're still explaining like, this is how you use them. That is not just a salad. So I think that's a huge advantage. I know a lot of other microgreen farmers in more rural areas have to do a lot more educating than we've had to do. We don't have a lot of signage or copy up on our stand that explains like nutritional benefits or use cases. We used to, but people just wouldn't read them. They didn't really ask questions about them. So it's more on a customer by customer basis. You get a feel for what they're looking for. You try to kind of pull that out of them of like, hey, can I help you? Are you looking is this for a recipe, or have you had microgreens before? Have you had our microgreens before? And then you can kind of feel out like their level of understanding, or they'll volunteer it to you. And then just getting them to, like you implied, getting them to break out of that assumption that microgreens are either one, only for garnishing, or only for chefs, or only for fancy people, or only for salads. That You can use them. You can blend them in a smoothie. You can cook them into your, yes, you don't generally want to cook with them. You generally want to add them afterwards, but you can cook them into your eggs. You can have a hot bowl of soup and put them in after sandwiches in lieu of lettuce and or garnishes. I made a lamb shank once and I took some parsley microgreens and used that as garnish. So it can be the whole spectrum. You just generally can't cook with them just because they're fragile greens. But yeah, I think it's just the same challenge with probably any farm product of whether you're a butcher or raising cattle or doing mixed vegetables. Like we sell kohlrabi in our most popular blend, and people are like, "What's kohlrabi?" I was like, that also feels reasonable, like a reasonable question. Kohlrabi is a very popular vegetable crop, a very popular. So I don't think our level of challenge is in education or getting people to think of creative ways to use them as any more so than any other farmer selling any other product. The one thing I will say that a lot, the news has helped, right? It's a very trending topic, microgreens, especially broccoli microgreens from a health perspective. So some people will come to us asking about like, what's the healthiest, or asking about nutritional components and micronutrients and things. And I try to stay away from that because nutritional studies are imperfect. Each person's individual nutritional needs are very unique. And I'm not a doctor. But I think where a lot of microgreen growers and maybe farmers that grow microgreens get it wrong is they do try to lean into the nutrients and try to say, this one's great for vitamin D or for breastfeeding mothers or whatever. When I think the most powerful thing is like, yes, you can mention that studies are pointing to them being more nutritionally dense than their mature version. Really, it's an accessibility thing. If you had to compete, even if the nutrient content was exactly the same between broccoli microgreens and heads of broccoli, with microgreens, they're grown indoors, so they never came in contact with anything, so you don't have to wash them. They're tender, so you don't have to cook them. They're small, so you don't have to cut them. And once you break out of that barrier of like how to use them, you can use them on anything. Whereas a head of broccoli, you gotta maybe wash it. You gotta cut off the thicker stems. Maybe you steam it. Maybe you bake it. So it's a how easy is it to get those nutrients? How accessible is it? Especially if you have kids or you're living a rushed, busy life. That's what I think people should be really focused on. It's just the ease of use.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Convenience is a great selling point, of course. So everybody's busy. So
yeah.
How many different varieties are you growing on a weekly basis then?
Our menu has, I think, 25 varieties, 6 blends, and we probably always have between 3 and 5 for fun varieties that are not official components of our menu. And we are probably growing every variety every week, just in different quantities. We always try to grow, even if nobody has a crop on order, we will grow at least one tray of it every week so that we can offer it in an email blast that we do. Like, again, not everything is grown to order. We still have some spec growing. So we still do send out an email to 100 chefs or so that says like, hey, this is what we think we'll have extra of. Nothing is guaranteed because you didn't commit to a standing order. But if you want something last minute, this is what we think we will have. So it adds some extra variety there. And then obviously it adds extra variety to the farmer's market. People love I just did an analysis with AI of all of our sales data. 37% of our farmer's market revenue comes from these offcuts, these leftovers from the restaurants, the little bits of celery, the little bits of cilantro and cantaloupe and beet. And they, more than a third comes from not our main 7 SKUs, not the retail stuff. People love all those little things.
Do you call that the restaurant leftovers mix?
Sometimes, yeah. It's got kind of nice ring to it.
I'm sure people would love that. Wait, you do cantaloupe microgreens?
Yeah, they're cool. They're the most interesting variety.
I may be showing my ignorance here, but I didn't realize that was a thing.
It's most people don't. And we tried. We're like, oh wow, cantaloupe is cool. What other cucurbits can we try? And we tried watermelon, we tried cucumber and squash probably, and they were all terrible. Just terrible, bitter, disgusting. Borage is okay. Borage is very cucumber-y. I don't know if that's a cucurbit, but grows very similarly, looks very similar to cantaloupe. But yeah, cantaloupe's, it's a cool one.
Yeah, I could. Okay, that's interesting. I've never tried any of those as microgreens, but I think the chemical cucurbitacin, I think is what it's called, that that gives cucumbers and the other cucurbits that distinctive smell, especially with like pruning them, like cutting the plant open. I mean, I think it's like a bitter compound. I think one of its functions is to deter pests.
That makes
So
sense.
that makes sense that the little guys would be like very strong in it if they're supposed, like if a bug bites into it, it's supposed to be repelled by the overwhelming cucurbitacins, but apparently not cantaloupe. Okay, I guess something new for me to try. All right, so is production fairly consistent year round, or is there seasonal variation? And so I guess in your case is that if production is tied to ordering, I guess it's like ordering, however you want to look at it, is production in response to orders fairly consistent, or do you see seasonal variation even though you're growing indoors?
Yeah, no, it's a well put that our variation is not because of a lack of our ability or our conditions, like an outdoor farmer where you say, yeah, I can't, it's freezing out. Of course I can't grow basil, or it's middle of summer. Of course I can't grow cilantro. That it's not our end. That's the problem. It is sales driven. And I would say our troughs, the bottom of our slow season is probably 80%, 75-80% of our peak season revenue or volume. And that's probably just normal weather reasons. If it's cold, people aren't going to come to the farmer's market. If it's cold, restaurants aren't going to have outdoor seating. If it's cold, it's probably Christmas time, which means people are on vacation, out of town. Same with the summer. So summer and winter are the slowest. Winter a little bit more than the summer, but it's usually like, especially because there's so many universities, so many young families around us. It's probably mostly driven by like people not wanting to come to the market when it's too hot or too cold, restaurants not having outdoor seating when it's too hot, too cold, and then just like people are moving in the spring, people are on vacation in the summer. But the swing is relatively stable. Like it's not. I know microgreen farmers in like Vail where you have huge ski and snow season crowds and huge backpacking and mountain biking crowds, and their peaks and troughs are like 100% to 30% or 100% to 50%.
Yeah.
Between those main seasons that drive a lot of tourism, that our area is relatively stable.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Do you have favorite varieties, either for ease of growth or flavor or anything else that makes you love them?
Sure. Economically, I made a reel a couple weeks ago that talked about how if I just grew this farm in only radish, it would be a $2 to $4 million farm, depending on your customer outlet, because radish is relatively, it's not a premium price, but it's also not the cheapest. It grows stupid fast. You grow 2 cycles every week, like 3 days in Durham, 3 or 4 days under lights. And then as soon as you swap them, they immediately run back to back of each other. So economically, radish wins. Finding that many buyers for radish is a little hard. Cilantro is also quite profitable. It's very popular. You can charge a premium, but it does take a little bit longer to grow. Personally, I love onion. It's the only allium we grow, and mostly because there's no reason to also grow like leek or chives or something. Nobody asks for anything else. But I just love the flavor. It's a lot. I always liken it to raw garlic. So I'm not a fan of nasturtium or mustard or arugula. I'm not like that type of spicy is not my favorite. And so it's more of a savory kind of spicy that you get from like a raw garlic rather than a mustard type plant. So I love onion. It's also really cool. It's the only plants, or most plants we grow are cotyledons. They have two seed leaves, but dicots.
Yeah.
I didn't go to school for plant biology or anything. So yes, most of our crops are dicots, and alliums generally are monocots. There's only one leaf. So it looks a lot more like grass, and it's just a cool look. So I like the flavor. I like the look. It's relatively easy to grow. Our customers overwhelmingly love basil, cilantro, tendril peas, and our nutrition mix, which is just like a mild, affordable, multi-purpose blend.
Nice. Okay. And now let's take a minute to hear from our sponsors. It's with their generous support that we can bring you the podcast for free. Today's episode of the Growing for Market podcast is brought to you by BCS America. On our farm, we've had our BCS two-wheel tractor for over a decade, and with no belts to slip, its all-gear-driven construction is still going strong. Though we originally got it for rototilling, we kept it even when we went mostly no-till because it can do so many other things around the farm. From snow blowing, to making raised beds with the rotary plow, to chipping wood, it can do just about anything you might need on a farm with the right attachment. Need to shred a cover crop? A BCS flail mower will make quick work of even the most vigorous cover crop and chop it up so it breaks down quickly. Want to stir in compost or amendments without inverting soil layers? A power harrow turns your BCS into a precise tilthing machine with depth control so you don't mix deeper than you want to. With so many attachments to choose from, it truly is the Swiss Army knife of farm implements. It's why, instead of saying two-wheel tractor, so many people just say BCS. Tractors and attachments are on sale through the end of the year. Visit bcsamerica.com to find sale pricing and your nearest dealer.
Hey, it's Lindsay from Grown By. There are a lot of farm sales platforms out there, but there's only one that's cooperatively owned by farmers. And that's Grown By, your all-in-one solution to simplify farm sales. I'm proud and excited to share 2 new features now available on top of the tools you already know and love. Number 1, our customizable CSA box builder. It allows your customers to simply say what they'd like in their share, and Grown By matches their preferences with your weekly harvest. Number 2, our new wholesale-only marketplace. Developed with the Culinary Institute of America, it makes your life easier with a dedicated shop for your wholesale customers. No more texting those chefs. Combining retail and wholesale inventories and records. And, drumroll, automatic payments on due dates. No more chasing down late payments. These new features sit alongside our popular online sales and traditional subscription CSA tools, making it easier than ever to manage your farm's business. As you start to get ready for next season, we'd love to hear from you and see if our cooperative can be a partner in growing your farm. Visit us at grownby.com. That's GROWNBY.com.
And now, back to the show. Are there any varieties that are a pain to grow, but you keep producing them because people want them?
Sunflower is not that much of a pain, but sunflower holes, the seed holes, most seed holes on any other crop are either so small or so soft that it doesn't matter. Beet and sunflower both have very tough seed holes. Beet and chard, not that whole family, because I know amaranth's in that family, and it's not the case for amaranth, but beet and chard seed are like dangerous. You chip a tooth on those. They're so hard. Sunflower seeds are just a nuisance, as anybody knows who's ever tried to chomp on sunflower seeds and get the germ out or the little snack. So we have to kind of manually pick those off. They don't all shed during the grow out process. So we have to, it's like a 90% effectiveness. And so that 10% we have to sort through. Beet, and so that's why sunflower is bad. Beet, weirdly not chard, same compound seed type, same plant family. Chard, we grow yellow, red, and magenta to make up bright lights. That's our colorful mix. When people are like, I want something with color. And you're like, okay, most plants are green, so that's going to be tough. But chard is relatively easy to grow. We still have to watch out for those seed holes, making it into the final product. But beet, for some reason, especially bull's blood. Bull's blood is that's what chefs know, right? They lock it into their brain and they're like, I want bull's blood. And you're like, you're not getting bull's blood. You're getting Detroit red or just red beet or something that's not such a pain. And we just really have to get a good seed lot. It's kind of back to what you were saying maybe before we started, which is you kind of have a list of suppliers and you're like, I'll buy a lot from you, but I'm not buying this variety so we only trust mums in Canada with red beet, and they're out right now. So we go to our customers and we say, you're getting red chard. It's not quite the same, but it's got the word red in it. So take it or leave it. Change your menu, change your order if you want, but otherwise we're replacing it with chard, and they don't tend to have too much of a problem.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. And what is your substrate for the microgreens? I see it's some type of soil from looking on your website and social media, but can you tell us specifically what you're using?
Sure. So we've always used, from the very get-go, we've used ProMix BX is the specific variant from Premier, which I think is a Canadian company. So it's not organic. They have an organic version, but I believe it's just peat moss, vermiculite, perlite, a wetting agent, and then limestone to counteract the acidity of peat moss. We actually ironically haven't tried the next most popular thing, which is coconut coir based soils. But we've tried hemp fiber mats, loose hemp fiber, coconut fiber, jute. We haven't tried any of the what I think are silly, like burlap or stainless steel or silicone. It's an enticing proposition to use a reusable substrate. what we found across all substrates is that none of them, except for maybe cocoa coir based products, is that none of them produce the same yields in the same times or the same quality. And I think it's that there's just nothing provides the root space, the kind of volume needed for healthy, fast root development and good exchange and management of water and oxygen that a sort of true quote unquote soil does. And we've tried more expensive ones, ones with more organic matter. We just finished testing Bio 365. We've tested Coast of Maine, and those are great soils. I know we used to use them at the Duke farm. A lot of farmers swear by them. They just don't do anything extra when they cost more than twice what ProMix does. So
yeah,
ProMix has always been solid for us.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Well, thanks for that rundown. Because when I was doing trials on microgreens, I tried a bunch of different substrates, and I know they all have different trade-offs, but it's good. Like, yeah, I mean, I don't know. In a way, like ProMix is very widely available. If it's like it's something that most people, if they wanted to try it, it would be pretty easy for them to try ProMix. So
I know I saw a post. There's all these indoor ag conferences and commodity shows and things where, just like the tech industry, people are bringing new things to market. And Jiffy, the seed company, agricultural company, I don't even know what they sell.
Like pots. Like, I think they're famous for their pots, but yeah.
Okay. I saw something about how they were developing and bringing to market a sort of agar, a sort of gel as a substrate. So I think back to like college or high school where you have agar plates for doing like culture development.
Yeah.
It looks exactly like that, or like just firm Jell-O. And apparently they ship it as a powder, and then you mix it on site with water to then develop the final substrate. I was like, oh, it's pretty cool. We never got our hands on it, but so yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. I have never heard of that before. So I guess we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see if it sticks.
And how do you cut the microgreens?
We just cut them with a chef's knife, with a good sharp knife.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we do own a quick cut greens harvester from Farmer's Friend.
Yep.
The mount for it. To be fair, I think something's a little bit broken in it that doesn't spin everything at quite the right rate. But again, back to being flexible. Like same with seeders. We have 2 different seeders from 2 different small companies that should be great, and they have their pros and cons. But when you grow 25 different varieties, even if you're growing 100 of one variety and one tray of 10 other varieties, the more variety you have, the less likely you can use equipment to automate things.
Yeah.
Like a tray filler and a tray cleaner, it doesn't matter if you grew 10 trays of 100 different crops. They're going to treat those trays exactly the same, so it doesn't matter. But a seeder and a harvester are going to have different seed you have to load in, different sowing rates or like dispensal rates, or different hoppers you have to load in to accommodate that seed. With a harvester, it's maybe different stem height or whatever. And so unless you're processing 50, 75, 100 trays at a time of the same variety, or a variety that operates under the same parameters, you're going to spend all this time wasted on managing the machine rather than getting the efficiency from it. So a little bit of a tangent, but when people are like, oh, what should I get first? Because they all cost a couple $1,000s, maybe 10 or 15, depending on the model. It's like get a flat filler or get a tray cleaner first, because it doesn't matter the composition of your farm. They're going to be effective no matter what. So we have the quick cut, but because we have so many varieties and not too many of any one variety, it's just not effective. There's too much setup time and cleanup, and it throws product everywhere. And I love Farmer's Friend. It's a great product, just not for us.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, and I bet a lot of people who are listening probably already know what that quick cut greens harvester is, because I think it's pretty widely used for a salad mix and stuff like that. So it does a great job for that. So does that mean that you're seeding the trays by hand also?
Yep, we just use a kitchen scale and a bunch of little plastic pint containers from Amazon or Webstaurant, and each crop has its own sowing density. So 1 pint container is 1 tray's worth of seed, and we just batch weigh them out. We cheat a little bit because my farm manager and I are so good at it now that we'll sometimes put like 5 or 10 or 20 trays worth of seed in one like container. And we'll just know based on the weight of it, or if there's a label on it, hey, this one pint container, you need to spread that over 20 trays or 10 trays or 5 trays. So it does add an extra step, right? You have to sit down and commit to weighing out all the seed, which is not something you have to do with a seeder, but works for us.
Okay, so yeah, right. Because once you've done so many trays, you're probably pretty good at like eyeballing how much seed needs to go into each one, and the seed is distributed evenly over the
I mean, it's you could argue for mechanization and automation a million different ways. You could say, well, it's another thing you got to train a new employee on, and then if they got to be trained on it, they're not going to be good at it. There's a lot of human error there. So until they're good at it, you're going to have these like uneven trays that are sown kind of poorly, and then that's going to impact crop quality for a little bit. And all true. You got to pick your poison one way or the other. And that's the poison we're consuming right now.
Yeah. Okay, and that's cool that you mentioned about the Bootstrap Farmer tray washer, because I noticed, I think it was a year or two ago when they came out with that, and I was thinking like, I think like microgreen growers are probably one of the target audiences is for that. And so what I saw, I think you had some stuff about that in your socials. I was like, that makes sense, because I imagine you guys probably spent a lot of time washing trays before you got a tray washer, right? I mean, maybe still spend a lot of time washing trays, but I'd like to think less.
Far less. I actually quite enjoy it now. It's about the only 2-person job on the farm. That like we've tested it. You can do it with 1 person, but it's substantially more fun and more efficient with 2. We love it. I think a lot of people fall into this trap, and we did too, which is like, great, there's a machine out there. Like all you got to do is throw the trays through it and it'd be perfect. But the trays still come out dirty sometimes. Like it's usually dirt that gets whipped away and some loose root matter, but like there are certain crops that leave behind very dug in roots that you still have to hand scrub. Like it's not perfect, but it's so much better.
Okay, good. I'm glad it's working out for you, because I saw that. I thought that looked cool when it first came out, and so I think you're the first person I've gotten direct feedback from on it. So good.
Yeah, no, we love it.
Do you use the same temperature and climate for all the trays, or do you have different climates for different crops?
Our warehouse is just one big homogeneous.
Just one big climate?
Aside from the bathroom behind me, it's just one climate. You could argue that there are microclimates from the shelves that are lower to the floor and the higher ones. We have 2 HVAC systems, and the space is 75 feet long. So there's windows up front. So there's microclimates laterally and vertically. All of our basil, like our crops are organized not because of the microclimates. They're organized based on how far they are from the harvest table and like how often we're visiting that rack. But
that's smart.
All of our basil is together. We grow about 100 trays a week, more basil than anything else. That means because of its long grow time, we have like 400 trays in production at a time. So we do tend to leave the front of the farm where all the basil is warmer. And we tend to turn the AC on and keep it a little bit more appropriate for humans in the back where we're harvesting, where we're doing all of our work. But besides that, no, it's just one big space.
Okay. And so what do you have it set for in there? I mean, I was thinking like, and I guess the other question about that is, do you use heat mats at all to get things to germinate? Or is it just I guess that plays into the set points question. Is the point that you have the temperature set at just good enough to germinate everything?
That one. That I think we don't grow red vein sorrel. It's probably the next most requested thing by our chefs. It would be the longest growing crop. It's a very cool crop. We never got that good at growing it. And it's not that profitable because it takes so long to grow and you have to cut leaf by leaf,
Yeah.
And I remember hearing on a different podcast, somebody being interviewed saying that they would actually roll it out of their main production room into the hallway where it was colder. That sorrel was a colder germinating crop. So maybe that's why we were never successful with it. But no, we don't use heat mats. The germ rack is closest to the back roll-up door, the back of the building, which means that in the winter or, when we're rolling up that door to wheel stuff outside to go plant or whatever, a lot of cold air comes in. And so we do see a little bit of germ time fluctuation between seasons, but we don't have to use, because it's warm enough here, we don't have to use heat mats or anything. And then the set points on our thermostats are usually like 72 to 73, but they're not the smartest thermostats. I thought they were, where you could set 2 set points and it would dynamically adjust heating and cooling to stay within that range, but it does not.
Oh.
That in the peak summer for like 8 months of the year, We just keep it on cool, and the natural outside temp will always heat up the building, and then it just bringing it back down to like 72 in the winter or in the shoulder seasons when it's kind of, we have to manage the thermostats. Sometimes it'll get up to like 80 or 82, which ironically is much better for basil. Basil's a very warm loving crop. But then we'll be in here, we'll be like, wow, it's kind of warm in here. Let's thermostats. So it's like 72 to 75 is ideal. But we often get to like between 70 and 82.
Yeah. Okay. And since I've seen it, because I looked on your website and socials, but like, it looks to me like you're using those racks, like the rack systems that people may be familiar with from warehouses, like big heavy duty, like shelving systems. Is that it? Is it, you got shelves with fluorescent lights suspended over all the shelves? Or, I mean, like, is that the general idea?
So we have 2 pallet racks. One is where we germinate everything. The other one sits like over our pack table. So it's nice to give us things like a place to sort of a framework to hang things off of and store stuff over and like be within. But our production racks, every other rack in our farm, mostly our production racks, are just standard 6-shelf wire racks that you buy from Costco or Home Depot, which means they'll have 5 working shelves or 20 tray spots. I usually tell people when they visit, I'm like, obviously the seeds are from seed companies. Obviously the soil is a little specialized. Our dehumidifiers, our commercial dehumidifiers, our trays, and our automation, our flat filler and things like that are specialty for sure. But 80% of the things in our farm are from like Costco, Home Depot, or Amazon. Wire racks, folding tables, chef's knives, little pint containers, little it's just normal. Like, we're indoors, which makes it seem sexy and high tech, but like, our outlet timers are from Home Depot. Our lights are LEDs, but they're not grow lights. They're like the crappiest $6. And I know people out there, I know people in my industry are like, you need grow lights, you'll get more yield. And I'm like, well, there's electrical considerations. And I just like, it doesn't have to be that complicated. Everything in here is like pretty stupid, pretty straightforward.
Yeah. Well, it's always a question of margins, right? Of like, if you buy the expensive specialized thing, are you going to get more than what you paid for it? So it sounds like you're keeping it simple. Okay. So it's all LED lights.
Yeah.
You're
Just
using
5 standard, like the same lights you'd put in your garage to give yourself accent lighting.
Are you like zip tying them to the bottom of one shelf so they are suspended over the tray?
Yep. So just 2 4-foot lights per shelf. Most of our rack systems are 3 racks deep, which means you can string together a full like row of 6 lights.
Yeah. Okay.
And then we have 5 shelves. So each row of 5 shelves, 3 deep, all goes to a power outlet or a power strip. And that power strip goes into an outlet timer. And then that outlet timer just runs 16 hours on, 8 hours off. So that whole setup is, less than $100 for 60 trays.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, cool. Well, I know you said that FreshPoint was one of your best customers, and I know, like, I also know talking to farmers, like, it's mixed. I'm just curious, how hard was it to start working with food service accounts like FreshPoint or Sysco? Like, did you just call them up and be like, we're like growing microgreens? Do you want to sample? And they tried them and started buying from you? Like, what? Like, yeah. Can you just give us a little insight in that process? Because I think really, like, I want to grow the market share of local food. And I feel like there's a lot of farmers markets. And I think one place that people could look to grow the market share for local food is wholesalers, and, all kinds of wholesalers like those. So I definitely want to get the lowdown on like how to work with those kind of customers.
Yeah, I got a lot of thoughts on that. So FreshPoint is a subsidiary of Sysco. Sysco is like top 3 or top 5 biggest wholesalers in the United States, which an aside that maybe we can talk about another time is the potential acquisition of Restaurant Depot by US Foods, I think, which would be quite the monopoly. Is FreshPoint's whole MO is to source local. It's like Sysco is meat and potatoes, don't give a rip where they get the product from. Just that's their job, is to source from wherever to get the thing that their customers want. FreshPoint, I think there's only 20 or 30 FreshPoints in the country. They're these local little hubs that are trying to access those local markets, those local growers.
Okay, I didn't know that. Yeah.
So there's one here in Morrisville, right next to Durham, and there's one in Charlotte. Those are the two closest. So we actually service both, but we just only deliver to the one that's closest to us, which is obviously very nice. We don't attend a lot of conferences. In the Carolinas, there's the Carolina Farm Stewardship Association. I'll never stop saying enough nice things about them. They're a wonderful organization. They host an annual ag conference, sometimes in North Carolina, sometimes in South. On all the ones that I attended in North Carolina, they always have a buyer-grower meetup where for like an hour in the middle of the conference on one day, you sign up and like a dozen buyers from, in our case, FreshPoint, the Durham Public School System, smaller wholesalers, food hubs throughout the state or the states, they're all there. And as a grower, you sign up and it's just a speed dating style. You got like 10 minutes with each one. You give them your menu. You talk about what you offer. You ask what they're looking for. And we ran into two buyers from FreshPoint the first year we attended, like 4 years ago when we were in my garage. And as the way the world is going, and the place that FreshPoint and many wholesalers are already at is they needed GAP certification from us. And we just weren't there. We were in my garage. I didn't really know much about GAP. We could still have a lot of market to gain in farmers markets and restaurants. And so we'd see them the next year at the same buyer grower meetup. Hey, like there's no point in talking beyond that. It's like, you're not certified. We can't, our hands are tied.
Yeah.
We'd see each other every year at this conference. And it just became almost a joke after the third or fourth year of like, the organizers would ask us like, hey, Garrett, have you've talked to XYZ people. Have you talked to the people over at FreshPoint? And we would just like look across the room at each other and they'd be like, are you certified yet? No, not yet. Okay. Well, yeah. See you next year.
Yeah. Call us when you are.
Right. And so we knew they wanted to buy from us and we knew we would eventually get GAP certified. And so when the day finally came, when we were preparing for our audit, we then started a legitimate conversation and say like, hey, we're prepping. Hey, this is our audit date. Hey, we're certified. Like we wanted to be ready to go so that as soon as we got that certification, even that tentative approval day of audit, that they knew and we could start capturing that market, especially because we had just moved. Like we bought this commercial space and then we renovated it and we got going preparing for our first audit all at the same time because we knew we'd have a huge new overhead moving into a bigger space and we needed to hit the ground running with these bigger sale accounts. So we were really like more so than anybody else in the history of the business, we were on them of like, hey, we're ready. Like, what is holding up your end? We've been flirting for 4 years. We need this now. Like, this is very critical for us. And so it was a long history with FreshPoint before it actually became a legitimate relationship. Other small wholesalers are easier. They're more accessible. But like US Foods, Cheney Brothers, Foster Cavaness is a really big one in our state. They've all been much more, as I usually call them, black holes of communication where you're like, try to call everybody, you call them repeatedly, you drive an hour out of your way to their facility to drop off samples, hoping and a lot of them are just big retailers as well. The Fresh Market, Whole Foods have been a lot harder. They're just black holes because they're just bigger, bureaucratic. It's just harder.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's interesting. Okay. So I know that you worked with your brother to create this thing, Microgreen Manager, and I wanted to ask, what are the limitations that you ran into with spreadsheets that led you to, want to create a whole, like, and actually, what do I call it? Is it software? Is it an app? Like, tell us, like, what pushed you to create Microgreen Manager in the first place?
Sure. So some of the language, it's a software, an app, doesn't really matter. It's not technically an app through the App Store. It is a web browser software, web browser app. I'm sure my brother's going to listen to this and go, you moron, that's not what it's called. You access it through the web browser just like you access Facebook or YouTube.
Farmers will understand.
Yeah. And at its core, it is a crop planning and order management tool. And every day as we add features, we hope to make it a full farm management tool, but we really wanted to lean into the crop planning and order management aspect. Excel is good. It's a great free start. A lot of people are familiar enough with Excel through some point in their life, through school or work. And that's what I started with. I built a custom Excel sheet. People can still download that Excel sheet for free through our website if they want to. If they want my old Excel spreadsheet, it's got instructions, it's got all the formulas, but there's limitations in different ways. You can always break the cell, break the formula, and then you don't know how to trace it back to like what equation did you delete that was doing some sort of math. And it's static. right? You have like maybe your grow times or the steps for each crop. You probably have some yield data. You can have a different tab for like your orders and what your customers want. But I'd say the first main limitation you run into is it's not actively updating itself. Like you can maybe have a list of orders of like customers and what they want, and then like copy and paste that week over week. And then some formulas would act on that and figure out how many trays you have to plant. Like I'm sure I did that. I'm sure people are smarter than me, find a way to make it work, but it's rather static. And this is just in the crop planning kind of aspect. This has nothing to do with like CRM or inventory or any of these other things that we have or want to have in our app in the future. And so between those things, between the breakability and the staticness of it, the usability of it is just poor, which is fine. That's not what Excel was made for. So once I probably approached my brother to build this thing like right away. So like, he's a software engineer. Like, how hard could it be? And he probably had the same thought when he eventually was convinced to start it with me. He's probably like, oh, I'll be done with this in a couple months. And like we're 3 years in now, and it's just, there's so many nuances to what we do. So when we started building the app, we said it'd be great for this to be a full farm management tool just for microgreen growers, just really purpose built for this niche. But we need to start with the core problem that Excel cannot solve, which is crop planning and order management. We have a bunch of different crops. We have 25, 30, 40 different crops. A lot of them have similar parameters. Like a lot of mild brassicas have a 3-day germ time, but some also have a 5-day and a 7-day germ. A lot of herbs have 5, 7, 9, 10-day germ times. They all have different grow times. They all have different yields per tray. And that's just a lot of permutations within your crops. Now you have your customers that want obviously different things, different volumes of different products. They want them at different frequencies. And so now you have kind of a million permutations of like, how much am I supposed to grow of each crop? And when am I supposed to start them and like manage them so that they're already on time for when each of my customers wants them? And you immediately kind of lose your mind of like, okay, if I plant on Monday and then I take it out on a Thursday and then 1 week and then 2 weeks and then it's ready on a Friday, and it just doesn't work. And then you're trying to be efficient with it because you don't want to plant cilantro on a Monday, a Tuesday, a Thursday, and a Saturday when you could really just plant them all together and have one cohort for the collection of people that want that product. And that's really what indoor farming, not just microgreens, whether it's mushrooms or lettuce, not having grown those things indoors, but I know enough about them to know that it's all like manufacturing. We have known grow times that are always going to be the same, unless you're growing in a greenhouse or outdoors. Like more or less, cilantro is always going to take 17 days and it's always going to yield 5 ounces. And it's always going to take 6 days in germination, and it's going to take the same sowing density. It's going to be the same. And so if you have all these like pretty fixed variables, you can match them up with all your customers and say, okay, working back from some hypothetical future delivery date, when do I need to do each of these steps? And how much do I need to plant in order to make sure everything is ready on time, in the right quantities, with little to no waste, so that I don't have to think about it. I don't have to get a whiteboard or an Excel sheet and do it all myself. And so that's really what we wanted to get at with starting it, and starting with that aspect is how do we solve that core problem? And then all the nuances therein of like, what if somebody skips? Or what if somebody wants to double their order for a given week? Yes, you can change the order, but what if you already have enough buffer? Like, can the software track that? And so the software tracks all of your surplus. So you can kind of back to when we started this conversation of saying like, if you get a new customer and they're like, I want 10 pounds of celery. You're like, well, okay, well, celery is going to take 4 weeks. And they're like, well, I'm going to go somewhere else then. You're like, oh, wow, let me look at the software. The software will tell you, oh, we can have 5 pounds for you this week. Like we have that buffer. The software tracks that. And they're like, oh, okay, that's good enough for me. And so it tracks all these nuances of like order changes and skipping orders, and just all the nuances that you don't think exist until you're in the industry and you're working with farmers markets and wholesalers and restaurants with all their nuances and peculiarities. And so that's what we really wanted to nail. And we really think we've nailed that. And now we're working outward to like inventory and cleaning and maintenance, and hopefully eventually more complicated things like GAP and food safety and record keeping. But
okay. So does the program come preloaded with like presets? Like you said, this many ounces of celery seed is going to yield this many ounces of cut product this many number of days later, and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, it comes with defaults that you can add. And those defaults are just my crops. So hopefully people trust me at this point as a reputable, source of information. And so you can right away get started and just selectively add them or add all 25 or so crops with their grow times and their sow densities and their parameters, or you can make your own custom ones.
And so you're saying that it builds in, like if you just take it off the shelf and start using it with its presets, there's, like you said, there's like a 10% buffer built in, the safety buffer that it can then track. So it's basically using your formulas.
Yeah, it uses my formulas. Everything is editable. So you could have zero buffer if you wanted to. If you're like, I'm so confident, I'm going to grow this perfect every time. We have higher buffers. You asked what crops I hate. Beet, because it always dies. It always has damping off. Beet has like a 25% buffer. So if we need 20 ounces for all of our restaurants, it'll prompt us to grow 30 ounces worth of product because we know we're going to lose some. But like peas are so consistent. They're so reliable. They're never problematic. I think we have the buffer at like 3% or 5%. So you can change it by crop.
Okay, so you may have already done this, but give me the elevator speech for Microgreen Manager. And if that's what you just gave me, you don't have to answer this. But like, why would a grower want to pay for it instead of using spreadsheets that they already have?
Microgreen Manager is a professional solution to a legitimate business problem that you're trying to fix with a tool that is not built for that problem. And for the marginal cost of what it is, which our highest tier is $25 a month, is a tremendous amount of brain power and anxiety and bandwidth that you get back when you use Microgreen Manager over whatever other method, whether it's whiteboard or Excel or something else, a generic farm tool that I think people discount too much because it's not in the physical world. Like we want to spend $10,000 on a potting machine because filling trays is tiring and it's dirty and it takes a lot of time and you're paying someone a lot of money. But we so easily discount the things that like take up brain space. So actually the pitch that I usually make is it's peace of mind. It's peace of mind that you're always going to have. You can guarantee that if you grow your product well, if you're a good farmer, that you will always have, according to the software and how you use it, you will always have what you need. You will always guarantee you have the right amount of product for your customers, no matter what they're demanding of you, skipping orders, doubling their volume, whatever it might be, that it gives you peace of mind. You'll always have what you need in the right quantity when you need it, so that your production planning is not the thing that's screwing you over in the end with your customers. It's hopefully you can blame it on the weather or a sick employee, and it's not the quality of your production planning and your brain.
Right. Okay. Because besides the fact that I assume most farmers probably aren't software engineers, if they're using spreadsheets or something like that, they're going to end up doing all kinds of customizations and things to those anyway.
And they're going to sync. I mean, you probably know better than I what the average take-home pay of a farmer is. That's maybe not in their first couple of years. Is maybe in the 50,000s, give or take.
I think it's all over the place.
So, I mean, but that's if we go on norms of if paying yourself $25 an hour, which is what we're charging per month, that's a $50,000 salary. So is your time worth for a less perfect, less well-constructed solution, 1 hour? Are you spending more than 1 hour a week or more than $25 in mistakes and suboptimal planning on your DIY solution? And the answer is probably that you are probably spending more than that in opportunity cost and anxiety. And so.
Yeah, I mean, actually, so I did want to ask, that sounds pretty reasonable to me. Like $25 a month to have your planning handled, like whatever, people can figure out if it's worth it or not. But are there different pricing tiers? And is there a way that people can try it for free?
Yeah, absolutely. We offer 30-day free trial. So hopefully that's plenty of time to run it through a couple crop cycles. If the standard season for a microgreen farmer is 1 week, is our cycle, you get 4 solid weeks to test it. So 30-day free trial. And then we have a free tier. If you're kind of just getting started in the industry and you don't have a lot of crops, you're limited on some of the features and the amount of orders, amount of plantings you can have in it. And then a $15 starter tier. If you're like, yeah, I think I want to do this for profit, or I want to, do this as a real commercial business, but I don't have any teammates yet, or I don't have that many orders. You're still limited on a few things. And then once you get to $25 a month, you can have unlimited teammates that access the software from their own profile, unlimited plantings, unlimited orders, obviously the whole feature set.
Okay, and it might work a few different ways, but does the microgreen manager work kind of like you work on the pull of orders where you can put in, say, like some customer ordered however many ounces of radish for this, they want it on this date, and it will like prompt you to plant X ounces of seed on whatever date based on your like. I know it sounds like there's defaults in there, and you said you could reset them, but is it going to do that kind of thing for you, like prompt you to plant at the right time for harvest?
Yeah, so you can do, right. My understanding is that most people in North America and probably Europe operate on a grown to order basis where you're hopefully getting these customers to commit to some sort of regular cadence, hopefully weekly. And
Yeah.
you put in those orders, you say this Joe Schmo wants this product every single week, and it'll just look out into the future and it'll plan backwards the timing and the quantities needed. You could also do, like in Latin America and some other countries in Africa, I think it's less common to get people to commit to a standing order. And so they are growing more on spec. So you can do the opposite. You can say, I want these regular plantings, and it'll track the volume that will come from those plantings, the sort of unaccounted for surplus, unclaimed surplus. And then as you go out and you sell that spec grown stuff to your customers, you can then put in those orders and it'll subtract it from that volume that you've already told you're growing. And you can do this all on a recurring basis and say, like, I know I'm going to plant 10 trays of cilantro every week, or my customers want these orders every week. Or you can just say one off. Like a lot of our caterers, we have a big catering customer for next week. And so we just talk to them well in advance and say, what do you think you'll want for this event? And then we can just put that one off order in, and it'll do the same calculations.
Cool. Yeah, that's helpful. And you said you can change from your presets, because I'm also thinking, like, I know a lot of farmers grow microgreens in a greenhouse. I know a lot of them do some of both, like do some indoor production in, like maybe propagation or germination spaces they might have, and then also do some greenhouse production. And obviously the greenhouse production is going to go faster in the summertime for most people and slower in the wintertime. So you can change. Does that make sense? Like that they can change the like days to maturity based on season?
You can, but you can't. You can change it whenever you want. You can't. It's definitely more geared towards warehouse growers where you have a consistent climate year round. You could always make different crops. Like you can do one-off orders. You can do standing orders that just repeat indefinitely until you change them. You could also set an end date to a recurring order. So like, hey, this restaurant has this menu until fall comes around, and then they're going to change it. Their order is no longer the same. So you could hypothetically use it in a greenhouse and say, like, I have 3 different crops of sunflower. This is like my winter crop, my summer crop, and my whatever spring crop that have different grow times and parameters. And then you could hypothetically make it work, but it is definitely geared more towards warehouse growers that have a existing.
Okay. That's funny because so we just had to redo our whole website, and I'm not a particularly technological guy, and but I've been having to sort of like cram my brain into a lot of these things of like like this is what we want it to look like, so this is how we have to do it on the back end to make it look that way. That's what I was thinking, is that you might have separate crops, like summer sunflowers versus winter sunflowers, and you could have a different like days to maturity on either one. Just call them different crops in the system or something like that. But at least you got the 30 days free, right? So growers, if they were at all, had any questions, that's should be plenty of time to kick the tires and like see if it works out for the individual situations. That's cool.
Yeah, we take a lot of pride in. My brother's on the West Coast; he's in Seattle, and I'm here on the East Coast. So between our locations, allowing us, more spread over the 24 hours in a day to like be in front of our computers or have access to the app, we really pride ourselves, and we get a lot of compliments on our customer service. Like we have a lot of big knowledge base, a lot of videos, a lot of a widget in app, so you can just like ask us questions. So to ask whatever you need to see if it works for you.
Yeah, cool. Well, and it's what you're using for your production, right? So, I mean, I imagine, I just imagine you probably caught a lot of bugs that way. I mean, I figure like using any kind of product, whether it be software or physical tool, you like using it yourself is always the best way to like test it, right? So I can imagine you've probably caught a lot of bugs yourself before they got out into the wild.
Yeah, or like Spencer will we'll design something and he'll push it to me first, like just to my account, and then we'll test it, and then like, oh yeah, no, this doesn't quite work how we thought it would, and that it's also dangerous because like we assume that as indoor growers, like even within all of the types of people that are grown to order, that we do this type of business model that we're like, well, yeah, we all do it this way, or like this is how it's done. But we were very quickly dispelled of that notion by our other users that are like, oh no, I'm also grown to order and I'm also in North America, but we don't do live trays. We don't sell trays living to our customers. We do cut product, but we have a lot of users that do live trays. So we're like, okay, we need to make sure it's adaptable for all the nuances that exist within microgreen production.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to me, that's one of the things that keeps agriculture interesting is that there's so many, like any one thing in agriculture, like growing microgreens, right? There's so many ways to do pretty much everything in agriculture that it either keeps it interesting or frustrating, depending on like your perspective on it and in your current situation. But it does, in the long run, it keeps it interesting, I think.
It's one of my favorite things about ag is how many things there are to grow and how many ways to grow them.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're like the permanent beta tester for Microgreen Manager?
Pretty much.
Permanent beta. Okay, cool. Well, Garrett, I mean, that's really the questions that I had for you today, but I always like to ask, is there anything else that I should have asked you about, or, anything else you want to say to our audience before we let you go?
Maybe a few things, all unrelated. One, I'll dispel the notion that microgreen production and microgreen farming is easier or any more lucrative than any other type of farming. I think within the very special world of farming, microgreens got for some time, and maybe it's less so now, the unique moniker of get rich quick or easy side hustle.
I think people saw the price per pound and were just like, oh, it must be very profitable.
I will maybe concede that as a side hustle, it is better because you can do it at home. You can, the barrier to entry is so low. But if you want to make it work as a full-time business that has employees and you're not a slave to the business, you can get away for holidays and things like that, it's going to be just as much work as any other farm. You have to hit a certain scale and have enough employees and enough revenue and profit. And so just dispelling that notion that it's worth it. If you want to be a farmer, it doesn't matter what type of farming you take on, it's going to be hard. And I don't think anything special about microgreens will keep you in it or push you out of it faster than any other form of agriculture. And I see that in the people that I hire, that I'm like, oh, you don't have farming experience. That's fine. You don't need farming experience. And then you very quickly kind of learn. They're like, oh, you maybe have never worked a labor-based job before, and this is your first taste of it, and that's fine. But I don't know. It's not a get rich quick. It's a good side hustle, but
that's probably a good reality check to throw in there.
And then we've become a very big fan of lean. Some people call it Lean Six Sigma, TPS, Toyota Production System. I'm sure you are at least familiar with Ben Hartman and his book, The Lean Farm.
Yeah, we sell it. He's been on the podcast.
Yeah, it didn't hit hard enough. Clearly, when I first read it, I had read a lot of books from Ben Hartman and John Martin and Curtis Stone and a lot of these well-known names when I was working the Duke farm before I started this, because I just wanted to consume all that I could, hoping that I was going to start a market garden. And then I just didn't touch those books when I started microgreen farming because there wasn't a lot of crossover. I mean, maybe Curtis Stone's stuff more than anybody's. Came back to Ben Hartman's book and just got prompted on YouTube through the algorithm for some lean, unrelated to farming, some lean stuff, and just really hooked me the second time. And all the thinking of like lean and finding waste and committing time in your day or your week to find inefficiencies, to address inefficiencies and waste in your farm. This whole notion of I abhor SOPs, standard SOPs, long documents no one's going to read. We pretty much have no SOPs in my farm. What we have are a ton of mini little systems that exist where the thing is being addressed. And a good example is we have our triple basin sink, soap, rinse, sanitizer. And instead of trying to remember the dilution ratio of our sanitizer or how much water needs to go into that basin to hit the right ratio, we just print out two little labels and put them in the sink. And it just says fill line, 250 mils of Sanidate. So you just run the hose, and once it gets to that line, you just put it in 250 mils. It doesn't it's always there. But then you have this second problem of It has no smell. It has no color. Probably has a taste, but we probably don't want to do that. So how do you know if somebody's already dosed it? Like maybe they filled it, but they didn't dose the sanitizer in. Well, we just laminate a piece of paper that says Sanidate has been added, and it's a green side, and then it's double sided. The other side says Sanidate has not been added, and it's a red side, and they both have Velcro on them, and you just put it up on the wall there. And like worst case scenario, you use a test strip, but we have all these little systems, and it's just, I think a testament to this type of thinking is the fact that we've gone from 100 to 200 to 300 to 400 trays per week in production or harvested, but we've never gone past 2 full-time equivalent employees, like maybe a full-time and 2 part-times or 2 full-times. But we've gotten better, and we've bought potting machines and other equipment, but our systems are so much better now that our labor, our payroll has not ballooned with our production. It's kind of remained stagnant as our production has gotten better or bigger because our systems have gotten better. And I just lean, and Ben Hartman's book is just great. So
yeah, it is a great book. It's definitely worth checking out if people haven't read it. Yeah, that's very impressive that you've been able to keep the labor flat despite growing, because I know most farms labor is the number one cost. So if you can limit your number one cost, but still, like, keeping a handle on that is being able to limit your number one cost is a huge deal for overall profitability. So yeah, that's great.
So yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, we'll link to the assets that you mentioned in the show notes, but I also want to give you a chance to say where people can find you online or social media or wherever you want people to look you up.
Sure. I do make a lot of content. I make a lot of short form, mostly for Instagram, and then I post it on TikTok and YouTube Shorts. You're welcome to follow my farm, Piedmont Microgreens, on Instagram. I don't really post there anymore. I can only commit so much time to making unique content, and so I really just prioritize Microgreen Manager. So Microgreen Manager on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Recently started making longer form, more thorough videos on YouTube about like how we fill trays, how we do each step in our process, so people can have that resource. And then of course our website, microgreenmanager.com, for starting your free trial. And yeah, all the resources are there.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and you got, actually, I may have been looking in the wrong place then, because I was mostly looking at your Piedmont Microgreens account on Instagram, so I'll go check out the Microgreen Manager also. But yeah, I enjoy your stuff. If people haven't seen it, you do a lot of just like explaining what you do, just like very simple but straightforward kind of stuff. Talk about a lot of the stuff that we talked about today. So if people are on social media, they could go check it out there.
I'd say it's very, very practical. 80-90% practical content with maybe 5 or 10% humor and satire. So
yeah. All right. Well, yeah, I enjoy it. Okay, cool. Well, Garrett, I really appreciate you taking the time today to tell us about your farm, and good luck with everything as you go through the summer.
Of course. Thanks for having me on. It was a pleasure.
All right. Take care, Garrett.
See ya.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Growing for Market podcast. If you've been enjoying the show, please consider giving us a follow and a rating or a review. It really helps others find the podcast. For more tips and tricks from farmer to farmer, check out our magazine at growingformarket.com. Whether you're a commercial grower or just want to grow like one, subscribe to Growing for Market magazine for the nitty-gritty of growing, marketing, and the business of market farming. We publish 10 issues per year with articles written by experienced farmers on topics ranging from tools and techniques to farm business operations and marketing. If you've been listening to the Growing for Market podcast and haven't yet checked out Growing for Market magazine, we've made a change so you can try the magazine for free. We've added a free month to the beginning of all first-time subscriptions. Try out the digital or paper magazine for a month, and if it's not for you, cancel within 28 days and you'll never even get billed. All subscriptions get you a year of the magazine, plus 150 downloadable back issues from the last 15 years and over 1,700 archived articles. With digital subscriptions starting at just $39 a year, head on over to growingformarket.com and subscribe today to benefit from over 3 decades of writing by farmers, for farmers, in Growing for Market magazine.